And the skies over Europe in the summer of 1944 were a battleground of unmatched ferocity. Beneath the roar of fighter engines and the steady drone of bombers, and young men risked their lives in pursuit of air superiority, often knowing that every sortie could be their last. Among them, and a select few stood out, not only for their skill, but for the almost mythic tales of bravery and cunning that surrounded them. One such figure was the P-51 Mustang ace, whose final mission would etch his name into the annals of aviation history. And this is the untold story of his last flight, a mission filled with courage, tragedy, and the stark realities of war. By 1944, and the Allied air campaign over Nazi-occupied Europe had reached unprecedented intensity. The P-51 Mustang, a sleek, powerful fighter, and had become the backbone of the United States Army Air Force's efforts to escort bombers deep into enemy territory, and its range and agility allowed it to accompany heavy bombers on raids stretching hundreds of miles and engaging Luftwaffe fighters and turning the tide of the air war. The ace at the center of this story was one of these Mustang pilots. Highly decorated, and he had flown dozens of missions, earning a reputation not only for his lethal precision, but also for his calm under pressure. And every maneuver in the sky was executed with a meticulous blend of instinct and training, and yet, as the war intensified, even the most skilled pilots faced an increasingly lethal environment. This ace had witnessed the rise and fall of formations, and seen comrades lost to flak and enemy fighters, and understood the unspoken rules of aerial warfare, rules written in the blood and bravery of those who dared to fly. His name, and though celebrated among his peers, would become immortalized through the tragic events of his final sortie. The date was late August 1944. The target, and a critical German supply hub deep within occupied territory. Intelligence had reported a significant concentration of enemy aircraft and flak defenses, and yet the mission proceeded as planned. The Mustang ace and his squadron took to the skies at dawn, and the sun glinting off the polished aluminum of their aircraft. From the outset, the flight was fraught with tension. Enemy fighters were reported in the area, and radar picked up heavy flak batteries that would soon threaten the bomber formations below. The ace, leading his flight, and maintained strict formation discipline while keeping a vigilant eye on the skies. Every pilot knew that any lapse could mean instant death, and as the Mustangs approached the target zone, the enemy made its presence known. German F-190s and Me-109s emerged from cloud cover, and launching a calculated attack on the bombers. The sky erupted into chaos. Tracer fire streaked through the air, engines roared, and the thin line between survival and disaster became painfully apparent. In this maelstrom, the Mustang ace demonstrated extraordinary skill. Diving and climbing and banking with precision, he engaged enemy fighters, protecting the bombers and picking off hostile aircraft with deadly efficiency. His squadron followed his lead, each pilot executing maneuvers drilled into them during countless hours of training. Yet, despite his experience and tactical genius, the odds were unforgiving. One enemy fighter, exploiting a brief gap in his awareness, attacked from an unexpected angle. The Mustang ace's plane took a critical hit, sending smoke trailing from the fuselage. The roar of the engine faltered, and, for a brief moment, the sky seemed to hold its breath. Even as damage mounted, he continued to fight, guiding his aircraft in a desperate effort to shield the bombers. Fellow pilots witnessed his heroism, and the selfless decision to protect others while facing almost certain death. But the damage proved insurmountable. The aircraft, and once a symbol of speed and agility, now became a steel coffin descending through the clouds. When the smoke cleared, the skies over Europe were quieter, and yet the impact of that day lingered. The Mustang ace's loss was felt not only by those who had flown with him, but by the wider Air Force community, and tributes poured in, recounting his skill, courage, and the extraordinary leadership he had displayed in the most harrowing conditions imaginable. And records show that he had flown over 60 combat missions, destroyed numerous enemy aircraft, and saved countless lives through his daring actions. Yet, and it was his final mission, facing overwhelming odds, fully aware of the risks, and choosing to fight until the very end, that cemented his legacy, and his story became a symbol of the human cost of war, the bravery required in the face of near impossible circumstances, and the silent heroism of those who never returned home in the days following his death. And the surviving squadron members honored him through ceremonies and personal remembrances. Letters sent to his family recounted tales of valor, and the intricate details of aerial combat, and the sacrifices made in the name of freedom, for historians and aviation enthusiasts alike. And his final mission offers a stark illustration of the realities faced by fighter pilots in the Second World War. The story of the P-51 Mustang Ace is not merely about one man's death, and it is about the courage inherent in those who dared to take to the skies against overwhelming odds, and the skill required to survive in an environment where split-second decisions meant life or death, and the legacy of heroism left behind for future generations to honor. Through archival footage, eyewitness accounts, and official military records, and we reconstruct the final moments of his flight, honoring both his personal sacrifice and the broader narrative of the air war over Europe. His name may not be universally known, and yet the tale of his final mission continues to resonate, a reminder that history is not solely composed of grand strategies and famous leaders, but also of the individuals who faced impossible circumstances with unyielding courage. And the legacy of the P-51 Mustang Ace is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, the profound cost of war, and the indelible mark left who rise to meet extraordinary challenges. As we look back on the events of that fateful day, we gain not only a deeper understanding of the air war in Europe, but also a renewed appreciation for the bravery of those who gave everything for the cause of freedom, and leaving behind a story that will never be forgotten. The skies over Europe in the summer of 1944 were a stage for some of the most intense and unforgiving air battles in human history. And below the roar of fighter engines and the constant hum of bombers, young men risked their lives on every mission, and aware that a single miscalculation could cost them everything. Among them was a P-51 Mustang Ace, a pilot whose skill, courage, and determination had earned him a reputation among his peers as nearly untouchable in the skies. He had flown dozens of missions, and each one testing his instincts, his training, and his will to survive, and yet nothing could have fully prepared him for the final mission that would etch his name permanently into the annals of history. By this point in the war, and the Allied air campaign over Nazi-occupied Europe had grown in intensity and scale, and with Mustang fighters serving as essential escorts for heavy bombers tasked with crippling the German war machine. The P-51, sleek and powerful, and could follow bombers deep into enemy territory, engaging the Luftwaffe with a combination of speed, maneuverability, and firepower that often turned the tide of engagements. For the Ace, flying the Mustang was both a responsibility and a testament to his skill, and he knew that every sortie meant navigating a landscape where the sky itself seemed to conspire against him, where flak, enemy fighters, and mechanical failure lurked invisibly, waiting to strike. On the morning of his last mission, the squadron took off at dawn, and the sun glinting off polished aluminum, the air crisp and tense with anticipation. And their objective was a critical German supply hub deep within occupied territory, a target whose destruction could significantly impede enemy operations. And intelligence reports warned of heavy flak and the presence of numerous enemy fighters, yet there was no option to delay. As the Mustangs climbed, and maintaining formation with precision, the Ace kept watch, scanning the skies with trained eyes, reading subtle movements that might indicate imminent danger. And every pilot in the formation understood the stakes. There was no margin for error, no room for hesitation. Approaching the target zone, and enemy aircraft began to appear, emerging suddenly from cloud cover with deadly intent. The roar of engines, the streak of tracer fire, and the sudden proximity of hostiles transformed the sky into a chaotic battlefield. The ace reacted with practiced skill, diving and climbing, and banking sharply to engage the enemy while ensuring the bombers he was escorting remained protected. His squadron followed, trusting in his leadership, and each maneuver executed with discipline born of countless hours of training and experience. Yet, the chaos of combat is rarely forgiving, and even the most skilled pilot can be vulnerable. One enemy fighter, exploiting a brief lapse in formation coverage, and attacked from an angle the ace had not anticipated. His Mustang took a direct hit, smoke trailing from the fuselage, and engine sputtering as the aircraft began to lose altitude. For a fleeting moment, it seemed as if the sky itself had paused, and acknowledging the fragility of the human life within the machine. Despite the damage, he continued to maneuver, and shielding the bombers and engaging the enemy with relentless determination. Fellow pilots witnessed his heroism, a display of selflessness and skill that transcended fear and physical limitation. The aircraft, once a symbol of speed and agility, and now became a vessel of struggle, descending steadily under the strain of critical damage. When the engagement ended, the skies fell silent once more, and, leaving behind the aftermath of destruction and loss, the ace's aircraft had been lost, and with it, a man whose courage and leadership had saved countless lives. Reports from surviving squadron members described the bravery displayed during the mission, and recounting how his actions inspired others to continue the fight even in the face of overwhelming odds. His record, filled with dozens of successful missions and numerous enemy aircraft destroyed, was already impressive. Yet it was the final mission, and the choice to continue fighting despite almost certain death, that would define his legacy. And letters and accounts from comrades and family members convey the profound impact of his loss, and the mixture of grief and admiration that accompanied the knowledge of his sacrifice. And historians examining the air war in Europe often highlight missions like this as emblematic of the courage required to survive and succeed in such perilous conditions, and where split-second decisions could determine life or death. And the story of the P-51 Mustang ace is not only about his skill in aerial combat, but also about the human qualities that allowed him to confront danger with unwavering resolve, and to place the lives of others above his own, and to maintain professionalism and composure amidst chaos. Through eyewitness accounts, military records, and personal recollections, the narrative of his final mission emerges as a vivid testament to the stakes of war, the intensity of air battles, and the heroism that often goes unrecognized beyond the battlefield. His life and death illuminate the broader context of the Allied air campaign, and showing both the strategic importance of fighter pilots and the personal costs borne by those who undertook these dangerous missions. And the legacy of this ace extends beyond statistics or accolades. It is found in the inspiration he provided to his squadron, and the lessons his mission imparts to historians and enthusiasts, and the enduring reminder of courage in the face of insurmountable odds. In reflecting on this story, one gains an understanding not only of the tactical and technical aspects of aerial warfare, but also of the human dimension. The bravery, the fear, the determination, and the sacrifice that defined an era and shaped the course of history. The summer of 1944 over Europe brought skies filled with the constant threat of death and destruction, and a relentless theater where every flight carried the weight of uncertainty and the possibility of never returning home. Young men, barely out of adolescence, climbed into the cockpits of the P-51 Mustang with a mixture of courage and apprehension, knowing that every mission demanded skill, precision, and a willingness to face almost certain danger. Among them was an ace pilot whose reputation had grown with every engagement, and a man whose calm under pressure and exceptional flying ability had earned him respect and admiration from his squadron. He had faced dozens of sorties, and, navigating the deadly combination of aircraft fire, enemy fighters, and the mechanical vulnerabilities of his aircraft, and each flight was a test of endurance, judgment, and instinct, and yet the dangers never seemed to diminish, and only sharpened by the increasing intensity of the Allied air campaign in Nazi-occupied Europe. The Mustang had become a vital component of these operations, and its long range and maneuverability allowing it to escort heavy bombers deep into hostile territory, and engaging the Luftwaffe and providing protection to formations carrying out strategic strikes. For the ace, and flying the Mustang was both a responsibility and a demonstration of his mastery, and using the aircraft's capabilities to their fullest to protect comrades and achieve mission objectives. On the morning of his final mission, and the squadron lifted off under the early morning sun, the polished aluminum of the aircraft reflecting the light as the engines roared to life, and a sound that had become both a comfort and a warning of the dangers ahead. Their target was a heavily fortified German supply hub deep within enemy lines, and a critical point whose destruction could have significant operational impact. Intelligence reports warned of dense flak and enemy fighter concentrations, and yet there was no hesitation. As they climbed to cruising altitude, the ace maintained vigilant observation, eyes scanning the horizon, and searching for the first signs of an impending threat. Every pilot understood the stakes. Any lapse in concentration could be fatal, and in the chaos of aerial combat, the margin for error was virtually non-existent. Approaching the target zone, the enemy appeared suddenly, and emerging from the clouds with calculated precision, F-1Ds and Mi-119s slicing through the sky to engage the bombers and their escorts. And tracer fire streaked across the sky, engines screamed, and smoke trailed from flak bursts as the aerial battle erupted in a whirlwind of sound, movement, and destruction. The ace reacted immediately, diving, climbing, and rolling to engage the attackers while maintaining formation discipline to shield the bombers below. His squadron followed, trusting in his decisions, and their movements synchronized with a rhythm developed through training and shared experience. Despite his skill and experience, and the chaotic nature of combat proved merciless, one enemy fighter found an opening, and striking the ace's aircraft with a direct hit that sent smoke trailing from the fuselage, the engine sputtering, and flames flickering beneath the wings. And, in that moment, the air seemed to hold its breath, the fragile human element inside the machine confronted with the raw power of destruction. And yet even as his aircraft faltered, he continued to fight, maneuvering to protect others while engaging his attackers with unwavering determination. And his squadron witnessed acts of bravery that transcended ordinary courage, and, observing their leader place the lives of others above his own safety in a display of selflessness and resolve. The Mustang, once an emblem of speed, agility, and strength, had become a vessel of struggle, descending steadily under the strain of the damage sustained in combat. When the engagement ended, and the skies quieted, leaving behind the debris of the battle and the stark reality of loss, the ace's plane had been destroyed, and with it, and a man whose skill and bravery had saved numerous lives and inspired all who had flown alongside him. And surviving pilots recounted his heroism in letters and official reports, highlighting the relentless effort he made to protect his comrades, and even at the cost of his own life. And the narrative of this ace illustrates not just the tactical complexities of aerial warfare, but also the profound human qualities required to survive in such extreme conditions. And his final mission, where courage, skill, and selflessness converged, stands as a testament to the sacrifices made by countless pilots during World War I. And his story illuminates the broader context of the Allied air campaign, and demonstrating both the strategic significance of fighter pilots and the deeply personal cost borne by those who face danger daily. And, through historical records, eyewitness accounts, and the recollections of family and comrades, and the tale of his last flight emerges as a vivid portrait of bravery, resilience, and the enduring human spirit, and reminding us that history is shaped not only by grand strategies and prominent leaders, but also by the extraordinary acts of individuals confronting the immense pressures of war. And the legacy of this Mustang ace continues to resonate, embodying the principles of courage, leadership, and sacrifice, and offering insight into the demands placed on those who took to the skies during one of the most harrowing periods in modern history. And his life and final mission reveal the interplay between skill, strategy, and human determination, and painting a picture of heroism that extends beyond accolades and statistics to the very heart of what it meant to survive and fight in a world defined by conflict and peril. The summer skies over Europe in 1944 were an unforgiving arena where young men risked everything each time they climbed into the cockpit of their aircraft. And below the roar of bomber engines and the shrill scream of fighter planes, the reality of death was ever present, and a constant companion for those who dared to fly into enemy territory. Among these men was a P-51 Mustang ace, and a pilot whose reputation had grown through countless missions, and his skill and composure under fire earning him admiration and respect from every member of his squadron. And he had faced the relentless hazards of aerial combat over occupied Europe dozens of times, surviving attacks from the Luftwaffe, evading flak batteries, and mastering the complex art of dogfighting with a combination of instinct, training, and courage. Yet despite his experience, and every mission carried the unpredictable element of danger that could end a life in seconds, and nothing could fully prepare him for the events that would define his final flight. By this stage of the war, and the Allied air campaign had intensified to an unprecedented scale, with the P-51 Mustang playing a crucial role as an escort fighter. Its speed, range, and maneuverability allowed it to accompany heavy bombers deep into German-controlled territory, and providing protection against enemy aircraft, and contributing significantly to the success of strategic bombing operations. For the ace, and flying the Mustang was both a responsibility and a reflection of his expertise, and utilizing the aircraft's strengths to maximize the safety of the bombers while engaging enemy fighters with precision and skill. And the morning of his last mission began with the squadron lifting off at dawn, and the first light glinting off the polished aluminum of their aircraft as engines roared and propellers cut through the cool morning air. And their objective was a heavily fortified German supply hub, a target considered vital for disrupting the enemy's operations. And intelligence reports warned of heavy flak and large concentrations of enemy fighters, yet the mission proceeded with unwavering determination. And as they climbed into the sky, the ace maintained a vigilant watch, and scanning the horizon for subtle movements or shifts in cloud formations that could indicate an imminent attack. And each pilot understood that a single mistake could be fatal, and the constant awareness of this danger heightened the tension within the formation. And, approaching the target area, enemy aircraft emerged suddenly from the clouds, and F-190s and Mi-109s slicing through the sky to intercept the bombers and their escorts. Tracer fire lanced through the air, engines screamed in unison, and flak bursts sent shrapnel raining around the formation. The ace reacted instantly, diving, rolling, and climbing with extraordinary precision to intercept the attackers while maintaining formation discipline to protect the bombers below. And his squadron mirrored his movements, their trust in his judgment absolute as they followed his lead through the chaos of battle. And despite his extraordinary skill, the unpredictability of combat proved ruthless. One enemy fighter struck the ace's aircraft from an unexpected angle, and sending smoke trailing from the fuselage as the engine faltered and flames began to lick the wing. In that instant, the fragility of human life and machinery became starkly evident, yet even under such dire circumstances, he continued to maneuver and, shielding the bombers and engaging the enemy with relentless determination. His fellow pilots observed acts of bravery that transcended ordinary courage, and, witnessing a man place the lives of above his own in a display of extraordinary resolve. The Mustang, once a symbol of agility and strength, and became a struggling vessel fighting against the inevitable. When the engagement finally subsided, the skies grew eerily silent, and, leaving behind the wreckage of battle and the realization of loss, the Ace's aircraft had been destroyed, and taking with it a man whose skill and leadership had saved countless lives and inspired all who had flown with him. Letters, official reports, and eyewitness accounts detailed the heroism displayed that day, and describing how he continued to fight and protect others even as his plane succumbed to damage. His record, already distinguished with numerous successful missions and enemy aircraft destroyed, became defined by the courage exhibited during this final sortie. And the story of this P-51 Mustang Ace illustrates not only the tactical and technical demands of aerial combat, but also the profound human qualities required to survive and lead under extreme pressure. And his final mission represents the convergence of skill, instinct, bravery, and selflessness, and highlighting the immense sacrifices made by fighter pilots during World War I. This narrative sheds light on the broader context of the Allied air campaign, and emphasizing both the strategic significance of fighter pilots and the personal costs they endured. Through historical records, first-hand accounts, and family recollections, the events of his last flight emerge as a vivid testament to heroism, resilience, and the enduring spirit of those who took to the skies, and showing that history is shaped not only by strategies and generals, but also by the extraordinary courage of individuals confronting peril and adversity. And the legacy of this Mustang Ace continues to resonate, reflecting principles of bravery, sacrifice, and leadership, and offering insight into the human experience within one of the most intense theaters of modern warfare, and revealing the profound determination and selflessness that defined the pilots of that era. The summer skies over Europe in 1944 were filled with tension and danger, and the constant hum of engines that carried young men into mortal peril. Beneath the roar of bombers and the high-pitched shriek of fighters, and the reality of death hovered in every moment, a companion to every pilot who dared to climb into the cockpit. Among them was a P-51 Mustang Ace, a man whose skill, precision, and calm under fire had earned him the respect of his squadron and the admiration of those who had witnessed his daring in the skies. And he had survived dozens of missions, navigating the deadly combination of enemy fighters, anti-aircraft fire, and the mechanical vulnerabilities of his aircraft. Every sortie was a test of judgment, instinct, and courage, and each decision made in the span of a heartbeat determining life or death. And yet no amount of experience could fully prepare him for the final mission that would define his legacy and etch his name into history. And by this point in the war, the Allied air campaign over Nazi-occupied Europe had reached extraordinary intensity, and with the P-51 Mustang emerging as a critical component in ensuring the success of deep bombing raids. Its speed, maneuverability, and long range allowed it to escort bombers far into hostile territory, engage the Luftwaffe, and provide a level of protection that had previously been impossible. For the Ace, flying the Mustang was more than duty. It was an expression of mastery, and a combination of technical skill, strategic thinking, and instinct honed over years of perilous combat. On the morning of his last mission, the squadron took off as the first light of dawn painted the sky, engines roaring and propellers slicing through the thin morning air. And their objective was a heavily fortified German supply hub deep behind enemy lines, and a target whose destruction promised significant disruption to the enemy's operations. and intelligence briefings had warned of concentrated flak and the presence of numerous enemy fighters. Yet there was no hesitation, only grim determination. And, as they climbed, the ace maintained a vigilant eye on the horizon, scanning for any subtle shifts or movements that might signal the approach of danger. And every member of the formation understood that any lapse could be fatal, and the tension in the air was palpable. Approaching the target zone, and enemy aircraft appeared suddenly from the clouds, F-190s and Mi-109s diving into attack with coordinated precision. Tracer fire streaked across the sky, and engines screamed in unison, and flak erupted in violent bursts, sending metal fragments raining around the formation. The ace reacted instantly, diving and rolling and climbing with extraordinary skill, engaging enemy fighters while keeping the bombers under his protection. His squadron followed his lead, and trusting implicitly in his judgment and experience, executing maneuvers with split-second timing as the battle raged around them. Despite his prowess, and the unpredictability of combat proved merciless, one enemy fighter struck his aircraft from an angle he had not anticipated, and smoke trailing from the fuselage as the engine faltered and flames began to lick the wing. In that moment, the fragility of human life was laid bare, and the reality of death pressing in with unrelenting force. Yet even as his plane suffered critical damage, he continued to maneuver, shielding the bombers, and engaging attackers, and demonstrating a level of courage and selflessness that inspired all who witnessed it. And his fellow pilots observed acts of bravery that went beyond ordinary heroism, watching as he prioritized the lives of others above his own survival. And the Mustang, once a symbol of speed, agility, and strength, became a vessel struggling against the inevitable. When the engagement subsided, and the skies grew quiet, leaving behind only the debris of battle and the weight of loss, his aircraft had been destroyed, taking with it a man whose skill and courage and leadership had saved countless lives and inspired all who had flown alongside him. Surviving pilots and official reports later recounted the extraordinary heroism displayed that day, and detailing how he fought to protect others even as his aircraft succumbed to the damage. His record, and already filled with successful missions and enemy aircraft destroyed, became defined by the courage exhibited during this final sortie. And the story of this P-51 Mustang ace illustrates not only the technical and tactical demands of aerial combat, but also the human qualities required to survive and lead and inspire under extreme pressure. His final mission represents the convergence of skill, bravery, instinct, and selflessness, and highlighting the immense sacrifices made by fighter pilots during World War I. This narrative illuminates the broader context of the Allied air campaign, and emphasizing both the strategic importance of fighter pilots and the profound personal costs they endured. Through historical records, letters, and eyewitness accounts and personal recollections, the tale of his last flight emerges as a vivid testament to courage, resilience, and the enduring human spirit, and demonstrating that history is shaped not only by grand strategies and prominent figures, but also by the extraordinary acts of individuals confronting danger and adversity and the relentless realities of war. The legacy of this Mustang ace continues to resonate, reflecting principles of bravery, leadership, sacrifice, and determination, offering insight in the human experience within one of the most intense and harrowing theaters of modern warfare, revealing the profound selflessness, skill, and unyielding commitment that defined who took to the skies in the most dangerous moments of history. The skies over Europe in the summer of 1944 were a relentless expanse of danger and noise and uncertainty, where young men climbed into the cockpits of their P-51 Mustangs, knowing that every mission could be their last. And beneath the roar of bomber engines and the piercing scream of fighters, the threat of death was omnipresent, a shadow that followed every maneuver, and every dive, and every turn. Among these men was an ace pilot whose skill, precision, and and calm under fire had earned him a reputation that inspired both admiration and respect from his squadron. He had survived dozens of sorties, and, navigating the deadly combination of enemy fighters, anti-aircraft flak, and the mechanical limitations of his aircraft, and every flight demanded split-second decisions, instinctive reflexes, and unflinching courage, and yet no amount of experience could fully prepare him for the final mission that would define his life and legacy. By this time, the Allied air campaign over Nazi-occupied Europe had grown in intensity and scope, and with the P-51 Mustang emerging as a critical tool in ensuring the safety of bomber formations. Its speed, agility, and long range allowed it to escort bombers deep into hostile territory, engage the Luftwaffe with precision, and provide a measure of protection that had previously been unattainable. For the ace, flying the Mustang was not just duty. It was an expression of mastery and a delicate balance of technical skill, strategy, and instinct honed through countless hours of combat. And the morning of his final mission began with the squadron lifting off in the pale light of dawn, and the aluminum skins of the aircraft glinting as propellers cut through the crisp morning air. Their target was a heavily fortified German supply hub, and a location of strategic importance whose destruction would significantly disrupt enemy operations. And intelligence reports indicated heavy flak and concentrations of enemy fighters, yet the mission proceeded with determination and a sense of inevitability. And as the formation climbed, the ace kept vigilant watch over the horizon, scanning for any hint of danger, and reading the clouds and the subtle movements that might reveal an approaching threat. Each pilot knew that a single lapse in attention could be fatal, and the tension in the air was palpable, a quiet pressure that demanded complete focus and unwavering discipline. As they neared the target zone, enemy aircraft emerged from the clouds with terrifying suddenness, F-190s and Mi-109s diving in coordinated attacks. Tracer fire lanced across the sky. An engine screamed, and flak erupted violently, sending fragments of metal raining through the air. The ace reacted instantly, diving, climbing, and rolling with unmatched precision, engaging enemy fighters while maintaining a protective formation around the bombers. And his squadron mirrored his movements with absolute trust, executing maneuvers honed through countless hours of training, and their survival dependent on his leadership and instincts. Despite his extraordinary skill, the chaos of combat proved merciless, and an enemy fighter found a gap in his awareness and struck his aircraft, smoke trailing from the fuselage as the engine faltered and flames licked the wing. And in that moment, the fragility of life became starkly evident, yet even as his plane sustained critical damage, he continued to maneuver, and shielding the bombers and confronting attackers with relentless determination. Fellow pilots witnessed acts of bravery that transcended ordinary heroism, and seeing a man place the lives of others above his own in a display of extraordinary resolve. The Mustang, once a symbol of speed, precision, and strength, and now struggled against the forces of destruction, descending steadily under the weight of damage. When the engagement ended, and the skies fell into an eerie silence, leaving behind the debris of battle and the sobering reality of loss. The ace's aircraft had been destroyed, and taking with it a man whose skill, courage, and leadership had saved countless lives and inspired those who had flown alongside him. Letters and eyewitness accounts and official records later detailed his heroism, and recounting the efforts he made to protect others even as his plane succumbed to the damage. His career, and already distinguished with numerous successful missions and enemy aircraft destroyed, and became defined by the courage and selflessness displayed in his final sortie. And the story of this P-51 Mustang amidst not only the tactical and technical challenges of aerial combat, but also the profound human qualities of bravery and resilience and leadership under extreme pressure. His final mission represents the convergence of skill, instinct, and selflessness, and highlighting the immense sacrifices made by fighter pilots during World War I. And the narrative of his life and last flight provides insight into the broader context of the Allied air campaign, and emphasizing both the strategic significance of fighter pilots and the deeply personal cost of war. Through historical records, personal recollections, and the memories of comrades, the events of his final mission emerge as a vivid testament to courage, determination, and the enduring human spirit, and showing that history is shaped not only by grand strategies and leaders, but also by the extraordinary acts of individuals who confronted danger, adversity, and the unrelenting realities of combat. The legacy of this Mustang ace continues to resonate, embodying principles of bravery, leadership, sacrifice, and the profound human commitment required to face one of the most dangerous theaters of modern warfare. The summer skies over Europe in 1944 were alive with tension and danger, and the unrelenting roar of engines carrying young men into mortal peril, each sortie a delicate balance between skill, courage, and luck. And beneath the continuous drone of bombers and the sharp scream of fighters, the constant presence of death hovered, and an invisible companion to every pilot who dared to climb into the cockpit. Among these men was a P-51 Mustang ace, and a pilot whose reputation for calm under fire, precise maneuvers, and extraordinary skill had earned him respect and admiration throughout his squadron. And he had survived dozens of sorties, each one a test of instinct, training, and the unyielding pressure of combat, and navigating the deadly combination of enemy fighters, flak, and the ever-present fragility of his aircraft. And every decision made in the air could mean life or death, a single miscalculation separating survival from disaster, and yet nothing could fully prepare him for the final mission that would define his legacy. By this stage of the war, and the Allied air campaign over Nazi-occupied Europe had reached unprecedented intensity, and with the P-51 Mustang emerging as a critical asset in escorting bombers deep into enemy territory. Its speed, maneuverability, and long range allowed it to engage the Luftwaffe with precision and protect formations of bombers tasked with crippling strategic targets. For the ace, and flying the Mustang was both duty and expression of mastery, a combination of technical skill, tactical thinking, and an instinct honed through countless hours of combat. The morning of his final mission began with the squadron lifting off in the first light of dawn, and engines roaring as propellers sliced through the cool morning air, the polished aluminum reflecting the early sunlight, and their target was a heavily fortified German supply hub, a location critical to the enemy's operations and deeply embedded behind enemy lines. And intelligence briefings had warned of concentrated flak and large formations of enemy fighters, yet there was no hesitation, and only a grim determination shared among every member of the squadron. As they climbed toward the target, the ace maintained a vigilant watch over the horizon, and scanning the sky for subtle shifts that might betray the approach of danger, reading clouds and movement with trained eyes. And each pilot knew that a single lapse could be fatal, and the tension was tangible, a quiet pressure that demanded complete focus and discipline. And as the formation neared the target, enemy aircraft appeared suddenly from the clouds, and F-190s and Mi-109s diving in coordinated attacks that transformed the sky into chaos. Tracer fire streaked through the air, engines screamed, and flak erupted in violent bursts, sending shards of metal raining around the pilots. The ace reacted instantly, diving, rolling, and climbing with precision, engaging attackers while keeping the bombers under his protection. His squadron mirrored his movements with trust, and executing maneuvers drilled into them through endless hours of training, their survival dependent on his leadership and split-second decisions. And despite his extraordinary skill, the chaos of combat proved unforgiving. One enemy fighter found a gap in his awareness, and striking his aircraft and sending smoke trailing from the fuselage as flames began to lick the wing and the engine sputtered. In that moment, and The fragility of human life became starkly clear, yet even as his aircraft suffered critical damage, he continued to maneuver, and shielding the bombers and confronting attackers with relentless determination. His fellow pilots witnessed acts of bravery that transcended ordinary courage, and seeing a man place the lives above his own in a display of extraordinary resolve. The Mustang, once a symbol of speed, precision, and strength, and struggled against the forces of destruction, descending steadily under the weight of damage and smoke. When the engagement finally subsided, and the skies fell into an eerie silence, leaving behind the debris of battle and the sobering reality of loss. His aircraft had been destroyed, and taking with it a man whose skill, courage, and leadership had saved countless lives and inspired all who had flown alongside him. Letters and eyewitness accounts and official records later documented the heroism displayed that day, and recounting how he fought tirelessly to protect others even as his plane succumbed to the damage. His record, and already filled with numerous successful missions and enemy aircraft destroyed, and became defined by the courage and selflessness exhibited during this final sortie. And the story of this P-51 Mustang ace illustrates not only the tactical and technical demands of aerial combat, but also the profound human qualities required to survive and lead and inspire under extreme pressure. His final mission represents the convergence of skill, instinct, and selflessness, and highlighting the immense sacrifices made by fighter pilots during World War I. And the narrative of his life and last flight provides insight into the broader context of the Allied air campaign, and emphasizing both the strategic significance of fighter pilots and the deeply personal cost of war. Through historical records, personal recollections, and the memories of comrades, the events of his final mission emerge as a vivid testament to courage, determination, and the enduring human spirit, and showing that history is shaped not only by grand strategies and leaders, but also by the extraordinary acts of individuals confronting danger, adversity, and the unrelenting realities of combat. The legacy of this Mustang ace continues to resonate, reflecting principles of bravery, leadership, sacrifice, and the profound human commitment required to face one of the most dangerous theaters of modern warfare, revealing the skill, selflessness, and unyielding determination that defined those who took to the skies during the most harrowing moments of history. The story of the P-51 Mustang ace is more than a tale of aerial combat or a chronicle of missions flown deep into enemy territory, and it is a testament to the extraordinary courage, resilience, and determination that defines the human spirit when confronted with the most extreme circumstances. In every maneuver he executed, and in every dive and climb to evade enemy fire, and in every split-second decision that balanced the lives of his comrades against his own, and he demonstrated a level of bravery that transcends ordinary understanding. Viewers are invited to reflect on the immense pressures these young men faced, and the weight of responsibility that came with commanding the sky, and the quiet heroism that often goes unnoticed in the grand narratives of history. And his final mission, marked by selflessness and an unwavering commitment to duty, and encapsulates the essence of what it meant to serve in the Allied air forces during one of the deadliest conflicts humanity has ever known. And in tracing his journey, from the early days of training to the countless sorties that honed his skill and defined his reputation, and we witness a man who embraced fear not as an enemy, but as a companion, a constant reminder of the stakes involved, and who turned that fear into a force that guided him to protect others and accomplish the mission at hand. The roar of the engines, and the streaks of tracer fire, the chaos of flak exploding around him, and the sudden and terrifying proximity of enemy fighters all become more than historical details. They transform into a visceral experience, and allowing viewers to step into the cockpit and understand the immense courage required to navigate such peril. And The Ace's story reminds us that history is not only shaped by the sweeping movements of armies and strategies devised in distant headquarters, but also by the individual acts of valor performed in moments when lie death in delicate balance. And it is in those fleeting, heart-pounding seconds that the true measure of character is revealed, where the human capacity for bravery, sacrifice, and selflessness becomes evident in its purest form. Every gunfire exchange, every evasive maneuver, and every calculated risk taken by this pilot was not merely an action in combat, but a deliberate choice to uphold the lives of others, and to protect the fragile hope of victory, and to honor the bond forged between men who shared the sky as both a battlefield and a crucible of trust. And, for viewers, this narrative serves as a window into the psychological and emotional dimensions of war, illustrating the complex interplay between fear and courage, duty, and empathy that defines those who confront unimaginable danger with unwavering resolve. And the legacy of the P-51 Mustang Ace is a mirror to the sacrifices made by countless men whose names may never be widely known, and yet whose deeds have shaped the course of history and preserved the lives of many. And it teaches us that heroism is not measured solely in victories or accolades, but in the quiet, often unseen decisions to act in the service of others, and to place honor, duty, and humanity above personal safety, and to face the unknown with courage that inspires generations. And as viewers contemplate the sky through his eyes, they are invited to appreciate the magnitude of his contributions, the depth of his character, and the profound impact of his actions on the course of history. The story encourages reflection on the fragility of life, the weight of responsibility, and the enduring strength of the human spirit under extreme duress. It conveys that true heroism is timeless, transcending generations, and that the lessons of courage, leadership, and selflessness remain relevant far beyond the battlefields of World War I. The narrative of his final mission, and filled with drama, peril, and unwavering resolve, draws viewers into an intimate understanding of what it truly meant to be a pilot, a protector, and a human being willing to risk everything for others. It highlights the interconnection between bravery and compassion, and showing that acts of courage are magnified when performed not for personal glory, but for the lives and well-being of those around us. And in recounting every maneuver, every tactical choice, and every heartbeat that marked the final mission, and the story captures the essence of heroism and transforms it into an experience that is both educational and deeply moving. And viewers are left with a profound appreciation for the sacrifices made, the intensity of combat, and the enduring inspiration provided by men who faced unimaginable danger with unmatched courage, leaving behind a legacy that continues to teach, inspire, and captivate. This story of the P-51 Mustang Ace, in all its detail, drama, and humanity, becomes a timeless testament to resilience, bravery, and the extraordinary potential within individuals to confront fear, act selflessly, and create a lasting impact on the world around them. And reminding every viewer that true heroism is as much about character and choice as it is about action and outcome, and that even in the darkest skies, courage can shine with a brilliance that illuminates history, memory, and the hearts of those who dare to witness it.